welcome Jyotish, Devi. Before we formally start, I will invite everyone to sit down and invite Anandita and Kapil to offer them bouquet as a symbol of love, gratitude, and a welcome from all of us here.
There are such beautiful flowers in India.
So before we begin, just a quick show of hand. How many of you are here for the first time? Okay, quite a few of you. Thank you. Welcome again on behalf of everyone present here. Just before I invite and hand this program over to Jyotish and Devi, just a quick overview about where you are and what about us also. And you may have seen the altar, and probably those who are new have heard this book, Autobiography of a Yogi. Yes? So, Autobiography of a Yogi was written by Paramahansa Yogananda. He's the author of that great spiritual classic. And in that book, he also talks about Kriya Yoga, a particular chapter he has written. And what we share here, Ananda shares, is the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. Ananda just briefly mentioned the picture here, Swami Kriyananda ji. He was a direct disciple of Paramahansa Yogananda. And in 1969, he founded Ananda, which is where we are at the moment. Again, with the primary purpose is to share the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda ji and make it accessible to everyone and bring the teachings into every parts of our lives. Mm-hmm. Both Nayaswamis, Jyotish ji and Devi ji have been with Swami Kriyananda ji starting very from the beginning. And they have helped shape the version of Ananda that we all at the moment have been enjoying. Nayaswami, Jyotish ji and Devi ji are the spiritual directors of Ananda worldwide. Mm-hmm. They reside in Ananda village in America, but they travel worldwide, visiting different communities, different centers of Ananda, guiding and shaping the work, and also inspiring truth seekers all across. It has been our great honor, privilege, and great blessings that they have been spending quite some time in Pune every time they visit. And today, they will be sharing inspiration with all of us together here. So on behalf of all of us, I welcome both of you. Thank you. It is a great, great, great blessing for all of us to be there in your presence. What we will do in just a moment is I'll invite one of them to start us with a prayer. Then, as is generally done, that we will sing a couple of choir songs. It sort of also sets the tone for the topic that Jyotish ji and Devi ji have in mind today. And later, we will also be inaugurating one of their books. The talk is also based on that book, A Touch of Inner Power. Mm-hmm. So before I invite the choir, I invite Jyotish ji to start us with a prayer.
Let's stand for the prayer. Center yourself and feel the energy at the spiritual eye between the eyebrows. That's the center of spiritual power. Let's pray together. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Friend, beloved God, Great Masters, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Sri Yukteswar, beloved Guru, Paramahansa Yogananda ji, saints of all religions, we humbly bow to you all. Beloved Lord, let thy power flow through us, but let that power express itself as love and peace, as kindness and joy. We are thy children. Receive us. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Please be seated. As Aditya said, we excuse me, as we're going to have a choir, couple of choir songs. Somebody said that Ananda in many ways is more like an opera than a spiritual work. We sing before meals, we sing when we leave, we sing when we get up. Anyway, here's some music.
So we'll sing a couple of songs, and both of these songs, as Jyotish was talking about, are written by Swami Kriyanandaji. First is Brave Were the People, and the second is I Live Without Fear.
Brave are the people who lived in these hills. Brave the great warriors who confronted the foe. To defend what is holy, to defend what is true. Our Lord on mankind did this duty bestow. Glad all our children who people these hills. Glad in their vision their hearts understand. What became of our struggles, now the records are still. But courage still lingers, giving strength to the land. Men hunger for riches, for power and for fame. By favor they think they will grow. The battles they fight, the victories they win, are never the victories they know. Men hunger for riches, for power and for fame. By favor they think they will grow. The battles they fight, the victories they win, are never the victories they know. Brave are the people who lived in these hills. Brave the great warriors who confronted the foe. To defend what is holy, to defend what is true. Our Lord on mankind did this duty bestow. Our Lord on mankind did this duty bestow. Green summer fade and winter draw near. My Lord, in your presence I live without fear. Through tempests, through snows, through turbulent tide, the touch of your hand is my strength and my guide. I ask for no riches that death can destroy. I crave only thee, your love and your joy. I ask for no riches that death can destroy. I crave only thee, your love and your joy. The dances will pass, the singing must end. I welcome the darkness with you for my friend.
With that, I give it to both of you.
Well, again, good morning and welcome to our Sangha this morning. This is a very interesting subject, the inner power, how to develop and what is inner power, how to develop it, how to use it. You know, if you look around, if you take a look at the news headlines, I would guess that half of the headlines that you read are about some kind of power struggle. Governments against governments, religions against religions, one cricket team against another cricket team. But there's always this struggle for power, for dominance. And so the struggle for power, we should understand, is one of the 8 aspects of God. So we're going to express power one way or another. But there's either the attempt, because power gives us control over whatever, basically power is the ability to control. And control a game, control a government, control a population. But the real control that we're seeking is inner control, control over our own selves. One of the most dramatic chapters in the autobiography of a yogi is about the Tiger Swami. So Yogananda was a teenager, and he and a friend heard about and then visited this Swami known as the Tiger Swami. And Yogananda describes him as a huge man with biceps the size of footballs. And they were walking down a corridor, and there was a brick wall, and this man took his fist and hit the wall and knocked a brick out, and Yogananda was very interested in all of this. Then he told the story of his life, and he was known because of his indomitable will, his strength, and the power of his consciousness. And he would often fight against tigers. Well, the time came when Raja invited him to fight against a very, very fierce tiger. And a big mob was there to watch this battle, and there was a big prize of a lot of gold for if he could conquer this tiger. And the Raja had particularly not fed the tiger and trying to everything to make him fierce. Anyway, the Tiger Swami enters the arena, the caged arena, and immediately he is attacked by the tiger, who attacks him and injures one arm, his dominant arm, his right arm, so severely that he can't use it. So now he's fighting the tiger one-handed with his non-dominant arm. And he manages to subdue the tiger and close the door and exit. But then after this big battle, he falls ill from blood poisoning and is very ill. And then he's visited by, who becomes his guru, a sage who said, "You've been fighting the animals outside of yourself. But what you need to do is you need to fight the wild animals within yourself." And so it's then that his life begins to turn around. And Yogananda uses that as an example of how we need to use our willpower not to control things outside of ourselves, but to begin to control our own reactions, our own sensations, our own ability to function in life. If we can gain control over our will and over our mind, then we become an indomitable force. If we can't, then we're going to try to control the world around us because we don't have control over our own selves. Tense your fist for a moment. Okay, just relax now. Now, where did you feel that? In your fist? Not really. The sensation that you felt was in your mind. The fist, there was a nerve pulse, a communication in the nerves, but where you actually felt it was in your mind. If you can learn to control your mind, then you can learn to develop tremendous inner power. When Yogananda came to America, he was relatively young at the time, about 27 or 28. And after a couple of years, he started touring around America. One time, he and 3 companions were driving across the country in a car, and this car had a top that could come down. Convertible is what they call them in America. A top that could come down. But they would stop along the way and just sleep in the car. They were living very simply. Well, this one night it was very cold, and the 2 of the driver and another man were in the front seat, and they each had blankets, and in the back seat was Yogananda and another passenger, and there was only one blanket between them. And he said he woke up and the other man had pulled the blanket off of him and wrapped himself up in it. So Yogananda pulled the blanket off that man, or at least his half of it, and wrapped himself up. And this happened 2 or 3 times. And then Yogananda said, "What am I thinking? Where am I feeling the cold? It isn't because the blanket. I'm feeling the cold in my own mind. I can control my mind." He sat up and began to meditate. And in the morning, he was sitting there with just a simple top on, no blanket, and he was the only one that was warm. But it was because he was able to control his consciousness. Now that's the kind of power that we're really after. The ability to control others. Ultimately, you're going to, if that is the direction that you're working toward, you're going to spend your whole life in conflict, outer conflict and inner conflict. But if you can begin to turn that energy within and control your own self, then you have something really valuable. Now, controlling yourself depends on a couple of things. The first is the ability to direct your willpower. That's why Yogananda wrote that chapter about the Tiger Swami, because the Tiger Swami had developed tremendous power of will and could use it to dominate wild animals, but ultimately began to use it to dominate the negative tendencies within himself. So will, Yogananda said, defined willpower or will as desire plus energy directed at a goal. So when I asked you to tighten your fist, that created in you, by my request, a desire to tense your fist. And then you sent energy there through the will. So that desire plus the energy resulted in an action. Now, if we can begin to understand and control our ability to use our will to accomplish a goal, then we have something that is good not only to clench your fist, but it's good for anything that we're trying to accomplish in life. The power to control our willpower is extremely valuable. Moreover, Yogananda said that the power to do that is infinite, that we can, yesterday we were celebrating Rama's victory over Ravana, and in that is Hanuman. Hanuman, in spiritual terms, represents the restless mind. But Hanuman had controlled the restless mind and aligned it with, because he was fighting for God, aligned it with the will of God, and therefore Hanuman is presented in that great scripture as having the power to lift mountains, to grow big, to shrink down. But the spiritual lesson there is not just the story of Hanuman, it's the story of what happens when, by the power of our will, we're able to control the restlessness of our mind. If we're able to control the restlessness of our mind, then we can accomplish great things. In business, we can concentrate, focus. If we have willpower, we can accomplish whatever we're wanting to accomplish in terms of goals. And so it isn't just an impractical teaching. It is the most practical of all teachings to learn how to control ourselves. So learning how to control your willpower gives you energy. And then there's a second law. Yogananda, we call him master, said that the stronger the flow, the stronger the will, and it's better not to think grim. Swami Kriyananda said, think of will as willingness. The stronger your flow of willingness, you create the stronger the flow of energy. And the flow of energy creates a magnetic field around you, which will attract to you the opportunities and the people and all of the things that you're wanting in order to accomplish whatever that will is directed toward. Now, that will can be directed negatively or it can be directed positively. If it's directed negatively, for instance, with the Tiger Swami, to dominate animals, then it's going to result in something unpleasant for you. If you try to dominate others, the karmic result of that is that the world, in one way or another, is going to dominate you in order to show you that that's not the right way to act. If you rather turn that energy of control into your own life, then the universe will support that. And that becomes a pathway to spiritual enlightenment. Because when we are able to control, first of all, sensations, as Yogananda did as this young man in the cold of mountain territory in the wintertime, we're able to control that, then we have tremendous power. But if we're also able to take control of our reactive processes, so when somebody comes and does something, instead of you reacting back, if you can control that, then you can control the situation. In the Christian Bible, there's a statement that Jesus said, if somebody slaps you on one cheek, then turn the other cheek. And most people interpret that as just be weak and passive. And if somebody does something nasty to you, then just let them continue doing that. It's the exact opposite. If somebody slaps you on one cheek, it means that was a karmic blow that you attracted to yourself. And what Jesus was saying is turn the other cheek, basically saying, all right, karma, come on, let's fight it out here and now, because I want to get rid of this and I want to be able to control my own life. And so with that power of the energy of the mind focused on wanting to be able to control ourselves, if we can control the reactive process, then we can control many, many things in our life. And finally, I'll end by saying that there are some other things outwardly that can help us in this process. Simple things. One is, if you want to develop inner power, spend time with people who have done that, because that magnetic influence will help you achieve your goal. Even posture. If you're wanting yoga, a reporter asked Swami Kriyananda, what is the most important yoga posture? And Swami said, the ability to stand on your own 2 feet. That's the most important yoga posture. And there was a study done. So even our posture has something to do with whether we're in control of ourselves or not. There was a very interesting study done. They took a group of people who were going for a job interview, and most of the people in the waiting room were on their cell phone, on their mobiles, doing something. But they took a group and they had them go into a room, and these were young women wanting to get a position. And the experimenter had them stand in what they called the superwoman pose. So chin up, chest up, hands on your hips, standing straight and strong. The result at the end of the time was of the group that were interviewing, the group that did the superwoman pose had twice as big of a rate of success as the group that was on their phone. Why? Because on your phone, you're bent over, your spine is bent, there's no energy flowing, you're outside of yourself, you're not centered. And in this position, you're centered. So even posture, even little things that we do can give us this sense of inner power. And so the development of inner power is a very, very important aspect of not only how to be successful in life, but also how to be successful on the spiritual path. Because if we can't control our power, we can't meditate effectively, nor can we, if we aren't really in control of ourselves, we can't offer ourselves to God, which is the ultimate goal of spiritual techniques and a spiritual life. By offering ourselves to God, we remove the veil that makes us think that we're separate from God, and we become a part of everything that is. And that, reuniting with our true source, is the real source of inner power. And Devi will now address some, and then we will launch our latest book, which is called A Touch of Inner Power. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you all for joining us, particularly those who are here for the first time. I remember many years ago, 1969, when I heard Swami Kriyananda, who was our lifelong teacher, he passed away in 2013, when I heard him lecture for the first time. I had just finished my university degree and had learned all sorts of things, as one does in college. But when I heard him speak, I thought everything I learned in college was totally useless. What this man is talking about is what I want to know in life. So those of you who are applying to college, I don't want to discourage you, but understand that there's education of the mind and there's education of the soul. And the education of the soul is much more valuable. So in this topic of what is inner power and how to develop it, once someone came to Yoganandaji and he said, "Sir, your critics are saying that you've lost your inner powers, your powers." And Yogananda said, "I don't know that I ever had any powers." And I want to make a little distinction here between inner power and powers. Because when we think of powers, we think of the ability to, make it rain or stop the ocean or whatever it might be, to defeat a wild tiger. Those are powers. But inner power, powers being multiple, plural. Inner power is one, and it may be manifested in many ways. We'll talk about different forms in which that inner power is manifest, but it's the same force. It's the same ability to control one's inner energy directed in ways that you know you should, even though there might be inner resistance at the same time. And that inner power, most importantly, is in attunement with God's will. If you aren't acting or thinking or responding in attunement with God's will, there is always an inner power. If you are doing it out of your own ego, out of your own desire to whatever it might be, there's a lesser ability. And I have to accomplish what you want. I have seen this as Amit, who introduced us. By the way, Amit is a very old friend of ours. When I guess it was it was about 10 or 11 years ago, we lived together in an ashram in Gurgaon, and we got to know each other quite well then. But in any case, when we think about how this inner power in alignment with God's will, how it manifests, I have seen this over and again because I've been, Jyotish and I, my husband and I, have been part of Ananda for, it's hard to imagine, but 55 years plus from the very beginning. And we have seen when Swami said that Ananda is like a living laboratory of spiritual practices. You see a certain course of action and what the results are. You see people trying to be in tune with God and Guru, trying to align their willpower with God's will. And you see, even though it may be very, very difficult what they're trying to accomplish, they do accomplish it. And you see people who, I'm going to do this because I think I should do it and I don't care what other people think. And maybe they're able to accomplish their goals, but there's not a feeling of fulfillment in the end. Because ultimately, and I share this with you from my own experience, fulfillment in life comes from doing God's will, not from what you get, not from what people think of you, not from what you're able to achieve even, but just to quietly know you have pleased God. And then a sense of inner fulfillment and happiness comes. And over the years, watching Ananda's growth, we've had many, sometimes people say, oh, well, you've lived in an ashram all your life, very easy, no challenges. Very far from the truth. If you want to build a spiritual work, particularly in America, you will find all sorts of resistance and all sorts of blocks. And when we were trying to get approval many years ago from the local county government to build the community, they fought us on every front. And then they would say, well, you need an archaeological survey. And so we'd get someone to do an archaeological survey. And then we'd submit it, and they say, oh no, this was only done by someone with a master's. You need someone with a PhD to do this. So it went on and on and on like that. Finally, there was the big public hearing, and we prepared. It was a room twice as big as this because it's a public hearing, and on all the walls, we made big displays. Water report requested, submitted, denied for a silly reason. We didn't say silly, but we just showed, and it was like several years. And the Board of Supervisors looked at that, and they just looked at us, and they said, we are so sorry. We give you permission to build your community. But it took us fighting and fighting with the thought that it was God's will, because one of Master Yoganandaji's missions to the world was to create world brotherhood communities. Ananda Village in California, and I hope someday many of you may come and visit us there. It's a beautiful 800 acres, about 300 people live there, all devotees, all meditating, all serving. We have businesses and clinics and schools. It's really kind of a new age ashram, a new age spiritual community. But we fought for it. but not with our willpower only, but with God's will. And that's why, the beautiful, beautiful symbolism in the Bhagavad Gita, where Arjuna is Krishna's charioteer. Krishna is Arjuna's charioteer. And what's the symbolism of that in the battle? That God can't fight the battles for us, but He can show us the way. He can give us the strength and willpower to keep going if we choose Him. And that's that beautiful symbolism, the beautiful poster I'm sure we've all seen of with the 5 horses and Krishna driving the chariot and Arjuna with his bow. That's Yogananda's interpretation of the Bhagavad Gita, and it's well worth reading. We have copies downstairs if you're interested, is that Arjuna represents each one of us. And the battle of Kurukshetra is the battle we all have to fight to overcome. The Kauravas aren't just an army, they are the negative tendencies, materialistic tendencies within ourselves. And we must fight that battle, every single one of us. But it takes inner strength and willpower. And that comes from aligning our will with God's will. By God, saying, God, I will fight this battle, but you give me the strength and the vision of how to succeed. And living life in this way is a grand adventure, really. Master said that all of life's experiences are for our education and entertainment. But he added, how few are either educated or entertained. But if we can face life with courage and not be daunted, but just say, I can't do this alone. We couldn't have created Ananda on our own. That one example I gave is one of hundreds of battles we had to fight to establish a spiritual community. But we were able to do it because we were letting God drive our chariot. And so, what are some inner let's look at our life in a practical level now. How can we express inner power in our daily life? Because it isn't just being bold and strong. That's certainly part of it, but it's subtler and deeper than that. To express inner power is to accept life as it is and not think, oh, it has to be something different. If only they would change, if only the world would do what I want. That's not inner power, that's inner weakness. But to say, I accept life exactly as it is, and I will go and I will do the best I can with the cards I have been dealt in my hand. That is inner power, to be able to accept exactly what is and not say, oh, it must be something different. There's a story, an autobiography of, if you remember, we asked the question, Ahmed asked the question, how many of you are new here? I'll ask another question. How many of you have already read Autobiography of a Yogi? Okay, well, that's a good show of hands. If you haven't read it, you have a wonderful treat in store for you. If you have read it, read it again. I read it every year, and every year I get something more out of it. Every year, Jyotish and I take a period of seclusion, and I read autobiography, and I just say, Master, you just teach me what I need to know for this coming year, and I learn something different. But in Autobiography of a Yogi, there's the chapter where an interrupted flight to the Himalayas, where Master tries to run away with two of his boyhood friends, and they get his brother Ananda, who always is playing the nemesis in so many adventures. He has the police arrest them, and Master doesn't make a big deal about it, but think of it. He and his friend were held in a jail for several days. I mean, that could not have been a pleasant experience for him. Anyway, one of the policemen said, "Oh, you're going to the Himalayas to look for great yogis. You would never find a greater one than the one we met the other day." And then he tells the story how he and his colleague, fellow policeman, were looking for a suspect who was a murderer. And they had axes with them, and they saw some man walking along who fit the description of the suspect, and they all yelled out, "Halt, stop, stop!" But this man just kept walking, so they ran after him, and one of the policemen took his axe and hit the man right in the back and severed his arm. And then the man turned around. He was a great yogi, and he looked at them and he said, without knowing anything, "I'm not the murderer you're looking for." But he took the stump of his arm and just pushed it right back in, and it instantly healed. No scar or anything. But that's the ability to say, maybe this, I didn't want someone to chop my arm off, but I'm not going to get angry. I'm not going to say this shouldn't be this way. I'll just do what I can to improve the situation. And so to look at life, it takes great inner power, especially as one gets older, to accept life as it is, to accept the fact that our bodies don't have the strength and our minds perhaps don't have the clarity they did when we were younger, but just to say, okay, this is what's now. Let me enjoy this moment just as it is. And if you remember, maybe it's hard to remember, I've heard these songs many times, but in one of the songs that our choir sang this morning, and by the way, you did a marvelous job. And that was a international choir. There were people from Russia, from America, from many cities in India, so that was well done. But there was a line in that one song, "Brave are the people," well-chosen song, but it said, "The battles we fight, the victories we win, are never the victories we know." That's well worth meditating on, because what it's saying is when tests come to us, we think, oh, this is about because I can't get what I want, or this is about because this person was mean to me, whatever it might be. But if we go deeper and say, what really is the lesson of this test, and what am I supposed to learn from it? That's when we achieve victory. And it may not be what we think it was at all. It may be just simply to find the inner strength to accept, to not react towards other people. So one expression of inner power is the ability to accept what comes. Another, one might say, even corresponding inner power is the power to forgive. This is not easy. If someone has hurt us or betrayed us or taken advantage of us, and I could ask a show of hands, and I think every hand would go up who had experienced this, but to say, I am using my inner power not to hold negative energy toward that person. I am using my inner power to forgive them. And Yogananda ji wrote a beautiful poem to honor Christ, beautiful poem. And he said, one of the greatest miracles when from on the cross, Yogananda says, it's not a poem, it's like a beautiful poetic essay. He said, one of the greatest miracles, Yogananda wrote, of all times was after Christ had been betrayed and tortured and crucified, he said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." Yogananda pointed this out to us. And so if he could do that, having suffered so much, then look at your own life. And look at the things in your own life that you're holding on to. Maybe it happened 20 years ago, and you still have a grudge against that person. You're the one that's suffering, not them. And so to look at all areas of your life where you're holding on to resentments or bitterness, whatever it might be, and just say, Lord, I give this to you, not passively. And I want to emphasize this. Right attitudes cannot be done passively. Right attitudes and right action take inner power. Because the world will say, oh, you can cheat, it's okay, no one's looking. Or, well, you'll lose your job if you don't go along with what the boss says, even though it's adharmic. But it takes inner power to say, I will hold firm to what I believe. I will not compromise my values to get ahead or to be well thought of. Another test that Ananda faced 7 years into its existence was, it's based in California, which is a high fire area. So there's a lot of forest fires. In 1976, a forest fire came and it burnt the community to the ground. We were 7 years into building it. There were homes, there were many buildings, everything was gone. We had no insurance. Many of us were families and with children, and we had nothing. And it come to find out that the cause of the fire was some government equipment. It wasn't arson, it wasn't malevolent, but just some government equipment that was shooting off sparks into the dry grass. And so all of our neighbors who also sustained loss in the fire, we sustained the greatest loss, they threatened to sue the county government. And they settled out of court for millions of dollars. We went to the local county who had approved our building, and we said, we did not come to this area to take, we came to give. And we will rebuild by our own efforts. We are not going to sue. You don't need to worry about, because it would have been the largest payment the government would have had to make. And because of that, I could just feel, watching Ananda's development, doors opened on many different levels because we were acting dharmically. And we could easily have said, it's your fault, you owe us, and we would have gotten that. But we didn't say that. We said, no, dharmically, we are here to create something using God's strength and our own attunement and willpower, and that's what happened. And so to not look to the world with blame, but to look, what can I do about it? How can I change? And so forgiveness. And then another expression of inner power, of course, is to try to always watch, and this is for most of us perhaps the most difficult of all, the reactive process. The great exponent of yoga, Patanjali, his very first definition of yoga, yogas chitra vritti nirod. Yoga is the neutralization of it can be translated in different ways. The way Master translated, yoga is the neutralization of the vortices of feeling or the reactive process. So to use our willpower to control that and to walk through life, ultimately inner power gives us freedom. Because we realize that nothing that happens in the world, not what the government does, not what our boss does, not what our neighbor does, not what our child does, none of them can take away our inner peace. And so the ultimate inner power is to live in that sense of peace, no matter what happens around you. Master said the yogi should be able to stand unshaken amidst the crash of breaking worlds. It's a pretty high vision to have, but it's something we can all do. And just to close with this thought, because in our center here, we offer wonderful classes based on Yogananda's teachings, meditation, preparation for Kriya Yoga, many teachings. It's the practice of inner concentration and meditation that gives you the ability to control the reactive process. Because in meditation, you withdraw the energy that is bound up into the world, likes and dislikes, desires and repulsions, all the yes and no, up and down, all the multifarious expressions of delusion of Maya. But meditation helps us to withdraw from that and to feel, I, untouched by this world, am a child of God and I live in His peace. So inner power is a great, great blessing, but the fuel that keeps it alive is an inner awareness found in meditation. And we really, really hope, suggest, urge that you look and find time to learn how to meditate and then practice it. It will be the turning point in your life. It was for me. God bless you.
So we will have some time for a couple of questions. So if anybody has a question, just raise your hand. We'll come to the
We have an online audience if they want to see.
Yes, so as you told that if one person slap you, then you should give him another cheek. Then if he come daily and start slapping you, because he knows that you are talking about the karmic things. So
That's a
in
good-
this
good
situation,
question.
what you need to do?
I think the first slap is your karma coming. If you do that every day, it just displays weakness and encourages adharmic. So we do need to stand up. You know, everything that comes to us, what we should really do is step back, get centered in ourselves, and ask, why am I attracting this? Why did this come to me? And I think the first slap, we should assume that we got that slap because we had the habit of slapping other people. And therefore, we have to overcome that within ourselves. But if it continues, if we step back, I think the lesson here would be we're too passive in the face of other people's negativity, and we have to stand up for ourselves. There's a story that Master Yogananda tells about a saint who was going through a village, and the village was terrorized by a cobra that was attacking the village. And so the saint went to the cobra and said, you're going to attract negativity if you keep attacking things. You have to learn to control that. So don't attack the people in this village. And the snake agreed. And then the saint came back a month or two later and found the snake was all bloodied and battered because the boys in the village found out that he was passive, so they could just tease him and throw rocks at him and so on. The saint said, I told you not to bite anyone, but I didn't tell you not to hiss. And so if somebody keeps a negative pattern toward you, you need to stand up to that person. And you don't need to be violent, but you do need to hiss. And so I would say, but the real question here is your ability to step back, not just to react, but to step back and ask the question, why is this happening? And what should my avenue of growth be in this situation?
I have a question. A person lives with pride and a person lives with dignity. Spiritually, which of these are significant and why?
I couldn't quite hear the question.
Yeah. A person,
A person lives with pride. Like basically, I mean, if you see in the Bhagavad Gita, they say even pride is something which is on the side of the Kauravas, unfortunately. But my question is, what about dignity? So, like between pride and dignity, what would you choose, and which is more significant spiritually?
That's a wonderful question. The difference between dignity and pride.
Not the English meaning, spiritually.
Yeah,
Right.
pride comes from a sense of uh, ego, from a sense of separation. I am better than you, comes from comparing yourself to others. Dignity stands alone. It doesn't, if no one knows that you, when you live a life, and the person I first recognized dignity in was Swami Kriyananda. He had the most noble bearing, the most noble way of expressing himself, but it wasn't based on egoic accomplishments. It was simply based on living in alignment with the uplifting energy of God and Guru. That's where dignity comes from, not from anything outside. And you can see, I mean, we all see pictures in the newspaper of the British royalty. You look at those pictures, they don't have dignity. They have title, but they don't have dignity. They have pride, but they don't have dignity. But dignity comes, you know, Mahatma Gandhi was a good example of dignity. There he was in his little loincloth, you know, being in prison and so forth, but he never lost his dignity because he lived in awareness of God's presence.
Okay, I think that's good. We're going to do a book launch now.
Let's have a round of applause for those wonderful words of wisdom. Namaste, everybody, and also friends online joining from all centers and communities across India, other parts of the world. I this morning offered a prayer to the masters, to Jyotish and Devi ji, and I had received this copy in Gurgaon when it was launched, and this will be released in Pune today. And I said, let me open 3 pages. And when Jyotish and Devi ji were sharing today, I thought I'll be repeating so many things they have mentioned. This is a compilation of their blogs from the year 2020, 22, 23. And I want to just briefly read from here. Jyotish ji is talking here about seclusion, dated January 2022. Admittedly, it is not easy for most people to find time for seclusion in their busy lives, although we should make all the effort. An interesting insight came to me this morning. Every meditation is a mini seclusion. The same 3 elements are needed: withdrawal, focus, and feeling God's presence. These 3 seem to be like fundamental spiritual forces of nature required in any successful spiritual search. So, my friends, try to be alone with God and with your own higher self. Take a seclusion, whether it be for a month, a week, or an hour. You will find that it resets your priorities, opens your heart, and refreshes your soul. From the inner silence, Nayaswamis Jyotish. Then I have another one. This is by Devi ji. These are a few paragraphs. The keynote, now this is from actually November 2022, the talk in Pune, which was titled, and again, I opened these pages randomly, trust me. And it says, the keynote talk we'd been asked to give was entitled, Stand Unshaken, How to Face Change with Courage. Here are 4 points that we shared to help people deal with uncertainty, change, and loss. And remember, this was right in the middle of the pandemic. First, when difficulties come, don't ask self-pityingly, why me? Ask rather, what am I supposed to learn from this? All of life's experiences, whether individually or societally, are given to us to expand our awareness. If we can depersonalize our suffering and try to see the bigger picture, everything becomes a source of greater understanding and growth. Next, when going through challenges, try to find ways to be of service to others. We have a devotee friend in India who lost his teenage son to leukemia. 2 weeks later, his father passed away from COVID. What was his response to such grief? He called his nearby Ananda center and asked, "What can I do to help others?" He became a part of our 24-hour hotline to bring comfort to those experiencing grief and fear during the pandemic. Through his service, he found acceptance of his own loss. Then, of great importance, as Jyotish and Deviji mentioned again today, practice meditation. Through this discipline, we can develop inner detachment that will help us to weather any outward storm. Peace of mind, awareness of a reality greater than our own ego, inner strength, all these and more are the fruits of meditation. Finally, deepen your devotion and your faith in God. And then I'll continue to the last one, where Jyotishji writes, again something they were sharing today. He writes, I'm reading in small extracts from their blogs. It is all about consciousness. Don't get confused into thinking that the tests in your life are about the tests themselves. Challenges will come, must come, but only in order to give you a chance to work on your consciousness. When they come, don't forget why you've drawn them. It's never about the project, but always about what you can become by facing them. I remember especially many years ago, Jyotish and Deviji were giving a talk in Ananda, Assisi, our center in Europe. It's the biggest center for sharing Yoganandaji's teachings over there. And his beautiful line, Jyotishji mentioned, whenever you're working on any project, now think of yourselves. I told Deviji one time, she said, what's your next project? I said, my next project is a very big one, Deviji. She said, really, what is it? I said, it's called Aditya, which happens to be my name for those who don't know me. But then Jyotishji mentioned in that talk, he said, whenever you're working on a project, ask yourself, am I working on the project or is the project working on me? Because God gives us projects, duties, so that we can learn our lessons. So I want to thank, these were just a few lines, as you can see from this marvelous collection. I urge all of you to walk away with Autobiography of a Yogi, if you don't have that book, as Deviji said, and also this marvelous scripture, Touch of Inner Power. Thank you, Jyotish and Deviji. I'll invite now our friends so we can release this book.
And for those who don't know him, Aditya is a great collector of books. So we will offer this first one to him.
So these books will now be available downstairs, friends, and I'll invite our online Guru Bhais to turn on their videos for a moment so we get a chance to see you. And how many do we have online, Tushar? 78 Guru Bhais and many who are gathered in centers and watching this as part of their Sunday service in a group. Okay, I'll hand it over now to Bhavani and Amitji.
Thank you, Jyotishji and Deviji, for this very beautiful, inspiring satsang. So many insights and true stories, not fiction, but true stories of valor, courage, steadfastness in developing inner power. And let's, as we, move on with our day, don't forget what we just experienced through vibrations, through words today. Hold on to at least a few of them. When we go home, write it down, reflect on it, meditate on it. And during the talk, you would have heard words like willpower, magnetism, meditation. And Yoganandaji has given very clear tools and practices on developing each of them. And for those of us who may be new to the path, we invite you to enroll for a meditation class if you haven't yet learned the practice. It's a wonderful, powerful practice to develop inner awareness and the strength we need to practice expressing inner power. So this class is on next Sunday, October 20th, 3:30 to 5:30 p.m. All of you are welcome, and you can also share the word with your friends and family. We will also have some very special workshops in the month of November. I won't go into the detail, but stay tuned to your WhatsApp and other social media for further posts on them. We have daily meditations, satsangs. Again, we'll be sharing all these details with you, but we are here as a family to support one another's journey. So do reach out to us. Come to us. We will be reaching out to you too. And it's about friendship and support. That's what Ananda Sangha stands for. With that, yes, the following weekend, starting October 17, Thursday evening, till Sunday, October 20th, 12 p.m., we have a wonderful immersive program which is called the Spiritual Renewal Weekend. This is the first time in India. And as the title says, it's about renewing ourselves. Lahiri Mahashaya would say every breath is a new incarnation. And we can work on renewing ourselves on many levels and layers of consciousness. So it's a beautiful program. Our friends, Guru Bhais, teachers, leaders are coming from all over India and from worldwide too. And I want to especially welcome Devi Leelaji, who is visiting us from Ananda Village, our headquarters in America, and our Russian friends, Vijay and Guru Seva. And many more will be coming in the week to follow. Thank you for coming, adding the blessing of your presence and sharing your joy and friendship with us. So let's also come together and share our friendship with our brotherhood around the world. So 17th, the in-person seats are full, so you're most welcome to enroll online. The online registrations are open, so we look forward to seeing you. Don't miss this beautiful wave of grace that comes with such programs. Enter that flow of grace. Om. And now I'll invite Amit to just close this session with sending out blessings of Om.
So again, thank you both of you for spending this morning beautifully with us. So as we also end, we will end with a prayer, but we also let's send our love and wishes to Jyotish ji and Devi ji as we chant Om 3 times together. I invite everybody to stand. And let's, as a gratitude, as a token of our love, we'll send 3 Oms to Jyotish ji and Devi ji. As we conclude, let's offer a prayer together. Divine Mother, may Thy love shine forever on the sanctuary of our devotion. And may we be able to awaken Thy love in all hearts. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.